I had just lost both of my parents within 6 months of each other. And I found myself saying, I need to step into a state of grace. I was trying to get to the eye of the storm over there. It was like a hurricane, and I
Right.
couldn't find my way. So I saw 5 words in the word grace, and they were gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. I was like, wow, those are 5 healing, powerful words right there in front of me.
Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Naist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Naist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Or good evening, wherever you are in this world. It's Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And today I have a special guest with me all the way from where it all started back on the East Coast in Massachusetts, right? When the Mayflower hit the
That's exactly right.
right.
I wasn't on it though, Max. I was.
Right. What I like to do, Anne, is have you introduce yourself to my audience, like who you are, what it is you do, and then we are going to, like I said, rock and roll.
That sounds wonderful. Okie doke. My name's Anne Jolles. I'm the creator and founder of Grace Trail. And Grace Trail is an acronym for the word grace is gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. And we can go into that later. But it's basically 5 wonderful words and 5 wonderful questions that I believe were divinely gifted to me in 2000. And, when I tell you the story, and I don't know if I should start now or how you want me to do this, but it's now 24 years later. I never thought when I was gifted this process 24 years ago that I'd be sitting talking to you about Grace Trail and where it's come to and evolved today. And so today, what's happened is from this amazing process, and again, I need the context of the story at some point. It's evolved to having 10 licensed trails across the country, Grace Trails, as well as people walking and talking Grace Trail in so many exciting ways. And I don't know, there's so much to tell you, Max. I don't know where to begin.
All right. Well, we're going to start from like the beginning, as far back and as deep as you want to go. But what led you, or what was some of those challenges that led you to create Grace Trails and create this wonderful thing that you're doing now?
Okay. Well, I can go way, way back. I grew up in a home with, my mother was an alcoholic. My father worked a lot and didn't come home much. He was a great provider. We lived in a beautiful, neighborhood, and we had 6 kids, and we had more chaos than you can ever imagine when parents weren't really watching. So a lot of amazing things went on. Anything you can imagine was going on. And it was very funny because during that time growing up there, I made a decision. I don't know how, okay, that I was going to break the cycle of addiction, and it was never going to be part of my life. And I had that so strong in my mind that I'm never doing this again. This is horrible way to live, and I'm never going to pair up again and live with another addict. And you know how that goes, so Max, right? How much control do you have over that?
Correct.
But one of the interesting things I did do was I used to interview my boyfriends. And, if we were dating a little bit, I'd start with, how much do you drink? How much do you use drugs? And if the questions weren't right, I was like, look, I'm not interested. I wish you the best. And so I was trying very hard. Don't ask me how I had the wisdom to do it, but I was trying very hard to break the cycle of addiction, because I know all of us in my family was so impacted. The wake from addiction in my family was as wide as the Mayflower sailing in here. It was unbelievable. And we're all still dealing with the ramifications decades later. So I think I started walking Grace Trail way back then. I have a friend from college who said, Anne, we were walking Grace Trail in college. And it's true. I got myself to Al-Anon and Alateen and whatever, adult children of alcoholics, as quickly as I could, and adopted all of their beliefs so that I could try to have a happier, fearlessly happy life, because it really sucked what was going on back there. Um, so that's sort of how I began. That's the way, way back story. And I can tell you that the whole Grace Trail began in 2000 when I was in my kitchen and I lost my balance in life. I really lost my balance. I had just lost both of my parents within 6 months of each other.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had two very creative, challenging teens, as you know what that's code word for. And
Right.
yeah, and I was changing professions, and I just lost my balance. It was just too much. It was just too much. And I found myself saying, I need to step into a state of grace. Didn't even know what I meant by that, but I knew where I was horrible. I was trying to get to the eye of the storm over there. It was like a hurricane, and I
Right.
couldn't find my way. So I saw 5 words in the word grace, and they were gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. I was like, wow, those are 5 healing, powerful words right there in front of me. And later on that day, I started asking the questions that flowed from those words. And the first question would be, even though life's really difficult, what can you be grateful for? I'd answer that. What do you need to release to move forward in your life? And I'd answer that. Okay, Anne, what's calling out for acceptance? It was a lot I was trying to accept. Answer that. Okay, now how do you want to challenge yourself to move forward? It might have been an inch that day. It might have been a big step, whatever. How do you need to challenge yourself to move from here to where you want to be? And I'd answer that. And the last one was E for embrace. What can I embrace as possible in my precious life? I'd answer that. And I did a really bad thing. I started calling my husband at work. I don't recommend that. Okay. That's not part of the Grace Trail. And
Right.
but I thought I was going crazy and I had to talk to someone. He's a really busy pediatrician. And I said, John, give me 2 minutes. He always said, yes, do it. So I'd ask and answer the 5 questions because I needed to be seen and heard. I just felt nuts. And one night he came home. So he'd listen to me. We'd get off in 2 minutes. One night he came home and he said, why don't we just go walk Grace together? And we walked Grace. We didn't have a trail yet, around the block for an entire summer, asking and answering those questions. And we found out every time we did it, we felt better. He'll say privately, so don't tell him I'm saying this anyway. He'll say he thinks it saved our marriage. And by that, we weren't looking at divorce. He didn't mean that. What he's saying is, in the midst of all that pain, it gave us a conversation and a guide to move through it. I mean, that's amazing to have a simple 5 questions that can really give you a way out of it. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's what it did for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I started sharing it. I'm a life coach, started sharing it in my practice, and people liked it. They were using it. And I have people who've been walking it, for 24 years. But anyway, when my son was in Afghanistan in combat, I lost my balance again. I just, being able to see him on Facebook, oh my God, I hated all that. So you're saying, did I watch those war movies? I don't watch war movies.
Now I know why, but
Yeah,
and
now
that's
you
got
know
to be
why.
tough as well. First and foremost, thank you for your son's service, and thank
Yeah.
you for your service. Because
Mhm.
as I'm hoping my audience is paying attention, which I know they are, because if you listen to what Anne is saying, everybody, like, it's not about addiction, this
Yeah.
podcast, but this episode, I should say. But if you listen to what she's saying,
Mm.
addiction affects everybody. It's not
Ah,
just the addict or the alcoholic,
yeah.
it's the whole family. And if you
Oh, yeah.
listen to what she's gone through, that's the family side, right? Because as I look back now, after being 21 years sober, going on 22 this year, right? Like,
Congratulations.
I realized the stuff I put my mom through, thinking that if I
Mm.
just stayed away, I'm not hurting her.
Mm.
Right. But when we're in our disease,
Mm.
like, when I stayed away, that means I didn't talk to her. I didn't let her know what was going on. And of course, my
Right.
mom, and as you did as a daughter, and you know what I mean? And all this stuff that goes through your brain when there's an active alcoholic or an addict in your family, you can't help but stress. And I realize that now too, as a parent of, like you said, you know what I mean? I got
Oh, yeah,
three
I
that took
do.
after dad. Luckily, my
Yeah.
son is 2 years sober. My daughter
Oh,
is coming up on 6 months.
yeah.
My
Oh, that's
oldest,
awesome.
I still pray for, but one day I hope they listen to this, because that grace, because I love how you started off with grateful, right?
Mm.
Because it
Oh.
was drilled into my head from
Mm.
day one. My sponsor and my mentors would always say, Max, if you're not grateful today, what day are you waiting on?
Right.
Right. And then I would start complaining, and you're not locked up. You got a
Right.
roof over your head. You got food
Right.
in your belly.
That's
So
right.
and they
Yep.
were hinting like, here's
Yep.
some, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had
No,
to get that
no,
out there.
please
And
do. That's what a conversation is, right? It's a
right.
give. So please interrupt. No, I don't want a monologue. So please. Well,
Absolutely. So continue, because
okay. So
you've got
I
my
just want to,
attention. I love this
okay.
Grace Trails. So keep going.
It's awesome. So wait, I want to go back to say, you said it starts with gratitude. You have to believe I didn't make this up. I know that's crazy, but I feel like I can say it to you, and I've said it a million times. I was gifted this. The universe, my guides, God, I don't know who. I was gifted the 5 words right in that order. And the questions just came. And gratitude being the first one is the most important part, because and I know that when you are able to access gratitude and really bring it into your heart and really feel it, your whole spirit elevates, your body chemistry changes, and guess what happens then? The answers to the other 4 questions change, because your perspective is one of positivity. It's really
Say
very
that again, Ann, because
interesting.
it's so true. I work with clients. I
It's
try to tell them that, and they're like looking at me with cross eyes, like, "What do you mean?"
right. Well, you don't have to tell them anymore.
Yeah.
Tell them just to ask these 5 questions, because I just had a friend drop something off at the house, and she had worked with me recently on a very large, like for 11,000 people, we ran an interactive grace trail.
Oh,
And she said, Anne, I enjoyed working that grace trail like 3 weeks ago, as much then as when I first heard about it 20 years ago. She goes, it's still alive for me. I use it every day. So it's simple, but it's so chock full of good things. So anyway, we'll move on. I don't mean to get stuck there, but oh yeah. Okay. So I was telling you that my son was in Afghanistan.
correct.
And so I read an article about the Appalachian Mountain Trail. And in the article, someone said, who's hiking the trail? And the answer was, it's a whole lot of vets walking off their war. I was like, really? Where do I go to walk off my war? Can't get out to Appalachian Trail, can't get out
Right.
to the California Pacific Trail. So I decided to make my own trail right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And I went down the beach, I picked up a big rock, and I'm not that strong, so it wasn't a big rock, but it was the
Right.
biggest rock I could carry. And I wrote gratitude. What are you grateful for? I took all 5 of those words, 5 questions, and I put them along this beautiful path along the harbor, and put up 2 maps, just little paper maps, expected whatever, cease and desist. I never got it from Plymouth. They've embraced grace since the moment it went in.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's awesome. And thousands of people have come to walk it. I have a book, I have whatever, I talk, and whatever, people have discovered it. And so anyway, um, that's the origin of the trail part. The grace part started in 2000. The trail joined it in 2012 when my son was in Afghanistan. And I would walk that trail to help me to cope with his experience, because you can just imagine,
Right.
you can just imagine what that's like. So, and he is home. He made it home.
Oh, good.
So,
I was going to
yeah.
ask you, did he make it home?
I know that's a hard question to ask, right?
Mm.
So I try to remember to tell people that, because otherwise they worry about me the whole time. So he made it home, and I'd say he's in a period of post-traumatic growth. Combat vets are different people. They are different.
Yes.
Yes. And so he's headed in a positive direction and doing some amazing things. So I'm really proud of him, and I'm going to have him on my I don't have a podcast, but a YouTube channel. I'm going to have him on my YouTube channel, a mother son, about what we've been through and how we got through some really difficult times and how we still like each other, which is pretty darn good, right?
Right.
After
Right.
all is said and done.
We're all, you know what? We could be these, I'm just going to say, we could be these badass veterans or whatever, but we'll
Yeah.
always be mama's boys. We'll always be mama's boys. And yeah, maybe I can have him on my podcast so he can share his story of what he's going through.
I think that's a possibility. I could never
Yeah.
speak for him, but I think that's a really strong possibility.
Right.
And you know, maybe the two of us will come on if he ever wanted that too, because it's very
Absolutely.
interesting when two people have been through such hard things together, apart, our own lives, his life,
Right.
and to somehow get through, not broken apart or broken to pieces, and still want to have a relationship because you have to work on it every day, right? So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
you bring up stuff for me, and you're so correct in when you say that, right? Because thank God, before my mother passed away, I was able to give her 14 years of me being sober. So
Ah,
I got to build that bridge back
yeah,
and build
yeah,
her trust with her
yeah.
and enjoy her before, you know what I mean?
I do know what you
And
mean.
really have that mother son relationship that God meant us to have, you
Oh,
know?
yeah, I do
And
know.
so I know what you mean, like, you know, because having relationships, as you know, as a parent with children, right? When they go off to do their own thing, you want to protect them, but they're at the same time, you have to back off and go, this is,
Ah,
you know, hopefully I taught you well, and this is your journey, you
right.
know, and it's tough, but yeah, that would be
Yeah,
great to have you both, or, you know, and
that'd be
him.
great. If he wants
Um,
to, I'm all in. And you know, yeah, it's really miraculous. And you know, along with your story, my mother was sober for the last 20 years of her life.
oh,
So
nice.
I got to she was one of my best friends.
So you got to
And
have a sober mom before she passed
oh,
away.
yes. And man, I'm grateful for that every day. And she's gone now 20 years. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Right,
I still cherish those times because, you know, because it just was so horrible the other years, you know, growing up
right.
with that. And so yeah, we're lucky. We're
Well,
really lucky.
and I agree with you. I think God, the universe, what
Mm.
I say, God, right, gifted you with this thing because,
Yeah.
like, I'm, you know, I'm listening to you. Don't I'm paying attention, but I'm going through my head. Okay, grateful. What am I grateful for? Like, you know, what can I release and what can I
Yeah.
accept? And
Yeah.
you know, and I'm thinking that's something that I have done. You have shortened the 12 steps for me. Like, you know what I mean? If you think
Yeah.
about it,
I
it's
do.
something
Oh,
that
I
we
know.
do on a
Yeah.
daily basis,
Right.
right? Because you know, and I know if you study, right, neuroscience says if you put something in your brain when you first wake up, that's positive, which
Yep.
is, and then at the end of the night, you do the same. So I
Yep.
work with clients and they fight me, of course, most of the time, but I say just keep it simple. Three things in the morning when you first wake up, and then
Right.
three things when you go to bed, right before you go to sleep.
Right.
Neuroscience says you'll actually build new neural pathways
Absolutely.
that will help you look at life in a more positive light at
Absolutely.
yourself and
Yep.
others. And
Yep.
so this is an honor for me to have you here. So I'll try not to interrupt anymore, but you
No,
got me
please
thinking, right? Because
do.
this is awesome conversation. So
That's
go
great.
ahead. And I like what you said, how your husband said that saved your marriage. That gift,
Yeah.
unbeknownst to you too, brought you closer together,
Oh, no
right?
question. No question.
And it's like, you know, that's what I look up to, are those couples that have had those hard times, been brought
Hard time.
together and
Yeah.
stuck it together, you know, stuck
Right.
together and keep
Yeah.
working out for not only for
Yeah.
themselves, but their families, of course,
Oh,
and
yeah.
to show the
And we
rest of the world, you know, like,
yeah.
look, this is what we do.
Right. Yeah. And we like each other. That's we like each other. We didn't just stick
Right.
together. We like each other and we actually have fun together still. And
That's
it's
awesome.
amazing. And you know, I'll say to him, I got to go walk the trail. Let's go. We walk Grace Trail all the time in just in our conversations, even at dinner. I'll say, let's walk the trail. And you know, you can walk it physically, but you can just sit and talk it, which is so nice.
Right.
Um, it's nice in a group to have the 5 questions, you know. The other thing though, people listening, I think this is a really important part of the Grace Trail is that there are rules. I call them rules. Other people call them guides or guidance or suggestion on the trail. So when you start asking these questions, they sound nice and they sound whatever, but G is great for gratitude, but R and A can get a little messy. What do
Yeah.
you need to release? What do you need
Right.
to accept? I like to say grace gets messy in the middle because those are hard questions. So I always say to people when I'm speaking to a group or leading a trail, I'll say, here are the rules on the trail. Number one, you can pass. You do not have to answer. You can keep your answers private. That gives people the freedom to say to themselves, do I want to share this? Very rarely, when someone has that permission, they seem to share because they know they don't have to. But if you
Right.
say to strangers, what do you need to release in life? It can make them feel very vulnerable
Right.
and it's not always safe to share. If people use these questions at work, which people do, for team building and things like that, it might not be safe to share your answer because you don't know if there'll be repercussions. So you always have to say to them, you can keep your answers private. I'd love to
Right.
hear it. The next thing is no judgment, criticism, or advice on the Grace Trail.
I love that.
Unless they say, what do you think?
Right.
But this is everyone's chance to be seen and heard. And then you'll like this one, I know, Max. What you hear on the trail stays on the
He's on the
trail.
trail. I love it. You know what? Because you're already getting my mind going. I'm going to let my case managers know that I got a killer group topic for you guys that you're going to learn how to do this with our
Yeah.
clients. I
Oh,
think,
great.
with your permission, of course.
Yeah, of course. I want to hear about it. So you and
Okay.
I are going to talk again because
Yes.
it's amazing. And so it's really it's a process to enjoy. It's a process that helps people go deeper. It's simple, but it's complicated and complex too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you
Yeah.
said, certain like release, right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
That could put someone in a,
Oh yeah.
even though you've laid the guidelines or the rules of the group or whatever, right?
Yep.
You don't have to share, right? But if you like, say you go into that, as I know, I've done it before, right? Like when there's nothing about any rules and they say you have
Mhm.
to share,
Oh yeah.
you're like,
No.
most people go, uh-uh.
Uh-uh.
If you're making me do this, I don't
That's
want to
right.
do it.
That's right.
But if
Right.
you make it a situation where you get to make the decision whether you share or not, right? The individual, then
Right.
like you said, for some reason, people are like, I'm going to
Yeah.
share. Okay, I
I'm
can
going to
release
share.
this, right? The
Yep.
A part, like accept.
Yep.
It might be tough with like newly sober clients that I work with, right? Because they're at their most vulnerable
Yeah.
and they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're getting clean and
Oh
sober, and
yeah.
but it's going to be interesting. And then go ahead, and then I love it. I love it.
Great. 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 I'm so thrilled. So so I don't know where I am in the story or whatever, but we can dive into the questions and you can learn a little bit more about those if you'd like now. Does that make sense?
Whatever you want to do, Anne. I think that might be good because now we have a background of how the stories came about, our
Yep.
race trails.
Yep.
Let's dive into those questions for a little bit and
Okay.
explain to my audience, your the gift you received and how you came up with
Yeah.
these questions.
Okay. Okay. So if you start right with gratitude, and it's funny, I've only had one person in 24 years say, I can't think of anything to be grateful for. That's the truth. People, I've worked with cancer survivors, whatever, and I'll say, what are you grateful for? And I always feel a little self-conscious because they're sitting with ports and no hair. And, it's just, who am I to say, what are you grateful for?
Right.
And at first, there's always like this silence in the room, and then they start talking, and then the energy builds and the sharing, and it goes right through the roof because they can find something to be grateful for. But the one person in 20 years who came up to me and said, I can't think of anything to be grateful for, was an oncology nurse. That was so sad to me, so, but whatever, it's just unusual not to be able to find one thing. So some people have to just be taught how to look for it.
Right.
And yeah, so gratitude is just basically, what are you glad about in your life? When my kids used to come off the bus, I'd always say, tell me something good that happened at school. What made you laugh? What made you smile? Because gratitude isn't always the word that means, like to kids, gratitude, but what are you
Right.
glad about? You know,
Right.
there's a lot of G's, glad
Excuse
about
me.
what's going good. How can you get more of that? That's the question. And so that's the simple gratitude question. And then R, I love, you're going to like this. R is if you say, what do I need to release in my life? The next question you ask is, so it falls into two, if you picture two buckets, falls into two buckets. The first one is, what's in my control? Okay? Right. Because you can only let go of things that are in your control,
Correct.
right? And that's a choice. And so then you say, well, what's out of my control? Okay, so that's really interesting. Start those two different piles of things. This is out of my control. Well, I can let that go, right? It's because I'm just not going to look at it or whatever. But the
Right.
truth is, the true power lies in recognizing what you do have control over on and then working on that and just letting the other stuff go, because that's all worry, because there's nothing you can do about it. You even said about your kids, it's their journey, it's their destiny. I have to let go. That's because it's not in your control.
Right.
So the hallmark of a resilient person is when they ask in the middle of adversity and challenge, those two questions, what's in my control? What's out of my control? And then they focus all their energy on what is in their control. That's a wonderful release, description of release and how you can use it to your benefit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Because it makes me think of like all the great athletes, or, the great business owners of the ones who are very, very successful. And
Right,
when you're telling me that, I'm thinking that's what they're going through in my mind. Like they're going, I can control this. I'm not going to worry about this because I can't control it. So I'm going to focus to get better on the
right,
things I
right.
can do. Like say, um, Tiger Woods, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure he said, I can't control this part of my game, but
Right,
I'm going to control how far and how straight I hit my ball. So I'm going to practice, because I've watched that guy in tournaments and heard like when everybody's done, he's going over to the driving range right after 18 holes and he's hitting balls like to,
right,
you know,
right,
and that's kind of like in my line of work, I same thing. I have to realize I have to work with the ones who really, I try to work with them all, but like if I focus my intention or attention on the ones who really want to try to change their lives,
right,
then I help them, right? And then the
right.
other ones that I can't control because they're doing it whatever anger or sadness or whatever they're going through, then I just become a guide and say, okay, I'm here to support you any way I can.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is amazing conversation. I love it. Keep
Oh,
going,
good.
Ann.
Okay. Okay. Acceptance. A is for acceptance. Okay. So the question is, what's calling out for acceptance in my life? Right. And then if you can't accept, because you can't, okay, what's calling out for acceptance? Something can actually be calling out for acceptance, but you're not ready to accept it. And you can't force it. And people will say, oh, get over it. You're still talking about that. You're
Right.
right. I am, because I haven't accepted it. Right.
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 Exactly.
So if you can't accept it, then at least acknowledge it. So the A in the grace is about acceptance, but there's a whole spectrum here of acceptance. And it starts on one end with denial, because it's the elephant in the living room. You may not even understand the elephant that you're, sitting on the couch with you, that, is
Right.
eating all the chips and whatever.
Right.
And so the first thing is acknowledge it. And I say that to people all the time. If you're not ready to accept, please just look at it and acknowledge what is. What is. And that's it. Sit with it. If that's as far as you can go, but acknowledgement is the first step of accepting. And
Well, isn't that like half the battle? Once you acknowledge something and know
I'd
it's
say it is.
there, then
Yep.
you can eventually accept it and make the change you need to make.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think acknowledgement is just the awareness you need
Right.
to, yeah, I think that's the first step towards acceptance. And some people will never accept. Acceptance sometimes never comes.
Right.
Sometimes it's just true acknowledgement, and that's all you're going to get.
Right.
And so, it comes in its own time, it comes on its own terms. And so that's it. What's calling out for acceptance? And if I can't accept it, can I at least acknowledge it?
Right. I love it.
Oh, good. And so the question is, how do I want to challenge myself to move in the direction of my choice? See, that's a very different question than what's my next challenge, because that sounds like your to-do list.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need a to-do list. We got enough of those.
Right. We have enough of
This
those
is
all day
about
long, right?
all day long. So this is about really standing above all the to-do items and saying, where do you want to place your precious energy to move in the direction of your choice? So I sort of pictured Grace Trill saying, what am I grateful for? Oh, look it, now I'm going this way. What do I need to release? Oh, okay, well, that makes me this way. Okay, what's calling out for acceptance? Well, I think my trail's going this way now. So you get a chance to tweak your direction throughout the day because you're asking questions that are giving you new answers. And every time you walk Grace Trail is different.
Right.
So you get to navigate life's challenges in real time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so the last one, so you may take a little step, like an inch at a time, like way back in 2000 when this process was handed to me. I probably was moving an inch at a time. That was it. Probably just like, oh, okay, I can gratitude. I was just so weighted down by grief and whatever. So as I asked these questions, they were incremental changes, and I probably didn't even know I was moving. But, as I asked them, they just kept they're hardwired into my brain. I go right to these 5 questions all the time to solve problems. And my my husband does too. It's just like we, you know, where your brain fires is where your brain wires. And these are now hardwired into my brain, and they're just part of who I am.
Right.
And so anyway, the last question is, what can you embrace as possible? I love this question because this is where you get to invite your imagination out on the trail with no self-judgment. You're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough or handsome enough, you're not skinny enough, none of that.
Right.
No negative talk. You look at the horizon, you find a horizon somewhere or a full moon or something that just says to you that, there's a bigger horizon out there for you.
Right.
And what I like to say to people, place your hope out on the horizon. What does your hope look like?
Right.
And this is the question where you say, what can I embrace as possible? And you walk towards that hope that you place on the horizon. And your imagination is your best friend with this step. What can you imagine as possible? And for people like that you work with, that's a hard question because it's a hard question, but it's really a delightful question. It's because that's telling people they have possibilities,
Right.
So anyway, I'm talking too much. Do you have any questions?
No. And you're bringing so much value to myself and my audience. And I'm listening and I'm taking this all in because it's giving
Good.
you're actually helping me to tweak some things when I work in a one-on-one with a client. So I can, right, instead of the old hardcore, you got to do this, right? Let's try something different. And you just helped me with a new tool of yours that I can work. Right. Because I could literally say, let's go on the Grace Trail and take a walk. Right. And they're like, I don't want to walk.
Literally.
And I can just say, well, we don't have to literally take a walk, but we can, in our imagination and talk together
Yeah.
and imagine on this trail that we're on. And and then I can bring up those topics. But like you said, embracing what is possible. And I'm not just talking about in the field I work in, but anyone who's having a rough time, as you've come across it in the work you do, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that one person in 20 years that had nothing to be grateful for.
Right.
But I guarantee you, when you did that with her, when she walked away, she probably was like, oh, I got so much to be grateful for. I could have told her, and that's what I always emphasize, right? I don't try to live in the past with the clients I work with or people that ask me for advice or whatever, like, well, let's think about what happened. And not in your way, but I've always looked at them and like, okay, what can you do now today to do something different and do something
Right.
better for yourself.
Right.
Right. And I love that. Embrace what is possible because,
Right.
well, I know, I think you and I have the same belief. We all know that with God, anything is possible, right? With
Yep.
our source, our higher power, whatever you want to call it. I call him God. And all of us are living proof that things can change and lives can get better. And
Right.
then we become that light like you are for so many, right? With your grace trail, and it's just, it's amazing. Like, as I'm sitting here talking to you, and the things that are going through my brain going, okay, this is not a coincidence. Anne's on here for a reason, right? She's bringing so much fun here and so much value and teaching me, right? Because that's, if you're listening, audience, right? Just remember this: you're never too old to learn. If you can continue to learn, right? This grace trail means, it makes so much sense to me. And as because I was actually on the grace trail with Anne. She didn't know, but I'm walking this trail and I'm thinking every time I'm thinking, okay, what can I think about right now?
Right.
But
That's we're walking the trail. You're right. We
we're
are on
walking
the
the
trail.
trail, right? And
That's
I think when
exactly
you
right.
practice stuff like this, it helps you more to be more present for the people, like your family and
No
those you
question.
love that are around you, because then you're
Right.
you're focused on what's important. And I
Right.
think that's what you brought to my audience so far, is how important, like, if you can come up with something like this, now they have a tool.
Right.
They can change whatever path they're on. If they think they're on this path that's going nowhere, you heard it everywhere, and just gave you a new tool to learn how to change that path. It's just up to you,
Yeah.
like any of us, to do the work and actually do it and
Right.
participate in our own life, right?
Right. Absolutely. And you had asked me, or I don't know, a question, if I wanted something for the audience to leave with, that you can be brave and scared at the same time. So that's how change happens, right?
Right.
I used to say to myself, scare yourself every day. Scare yourself doing something that scares you every day. And then you get braver. And even if it's just like a stupid little thing, if it scares you and it's what you want to do, then try to
Right.
do it. But a big learning for me was it's okay to be scared and courageous at the same time.
Absolutely. Right. And that's
I think
like,
people, yeah, I think people think, yeah,
well, there's people that show us
go on.
that every day, that are out there, like some to way extreme than others. But, like, for instance, David Goggins, is that kind of mindset is what he has, right? I don't know if you know who he is. He's a former Navy SEAL who loves to run.
No. Oh,
So
okay.
he's a former Navy SEAL. He wrote a couple of books. The first one is called Can't Hurt Me. It's about his growing up, and now he became a SEAL. But he's doing what you said, right? Like, he pushes himself, like he runs those ultra marathons, right? 100+ mile runs, or
Right.
and he
Right. Oh my
says,
God.
like, you have to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And that's
Absolutely.
right. In life, things are going to be scary. Like, for instance, I still get
Right.
butterflies before I get on and interview a guest like Anne, like, oh, am I going to be good enough? Or, but here's that thing. I tell
Right.
myself,
Oh yeah.
you just got to do it. Just do it. Like, you're going to have fun, like, don't be afraid, because she's human just like you are, Max. And you're just going to, and that's why I
Right.
said, like, we just have a conversation and talk to each other, and we find out,
Before,
I find out how wonderful of a human being you are as we're talking, and I'm thinking, wow, she's going to bring a lot to my
oh, well, thank
audience.
you.
So, um, we can probably talk about Grace Trail forever, but I want to talk about, like, your book that you said you wrote, and give them what brought that about.
You have any problems? I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, I
We're
can hear
having
you now.
connect.
Yeah, we had a little connective problem. Sorry about that,
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah.
The question was, talk about your book, Anne, and what brought that about.
Okay. Okay. So my book is called Grace Trail, and it was published in 2015, and it was really to help people to have an easy to read, inspirational, educational book to understand Grace Trail. And it really does explain it beautifully, simply, And I've walked out. So the Grace Trail is outside my house, the physical one in Plymouth. I've walked out there and met book
Excuse me.
clubs, reading the book, going from letter to letter, and they've got it all like, post-it notes on gratitude and post-it, and it's just unbelievable. That was actually a group of veterans families, and they have a book club, and they use the Grace Trail a lot. So I wrote the book to just put all of the wisdom of what is Grace Trail and how can you bring it into your life. And people just have that as a guide. It's a trail guide. That's how I consider it.
I love it.
And yeah, it's a nice book. I call it evergreen. I keep saying, oh, I should upgrade it. I should this and that, but it really works just fine still. There's a lot more going on Grace Trail, but it's a wonderful reference and easy but deep read. It's nice. It's a nice book. I've also have something called trail kits. And so if you go to gracetrail.com, can I share some of this now? Is this a good time?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
We're going to get in that too, but go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, if you go to gracetrail.com, I have right on the top of the website that you can get a PDF downloaded, and it's sort of a journal, a 5-page journal that you can write all your answers, and it's trying to help people to sort of direct 2025 in the direction of their choice. So that's a nice gift to all of your listeners, and it's on gracetrail.com. And if you fool around on gracetrail.com, you'll see. Go on. Were you going to say something, Max?
No, I'm listening. I've just adjusted.
Oh, I thought you would. I thought, okay. So you can also see I have three kits. One is a custom kit for those corporations, communities, hospitals who want to put in a physical trail. So it's a licensed trail, and you would work with us and we help you to put in a Grace Trail. And that's a physical trail. I'm looking for corporations that want to put it on their rooftops. I'd love a corporation who says, you know what, we need one in Central Park, and
Nice.
I want it to be called whatever corporation Grace Trail it is, and put it in. I'm looking for people who can have the power and the strength to actually put in Grace Trails in wonderful places. So that's called a custom trail. And then we've got trail kits, and one is it's called a trail in a box, and it's the 5 questions and 5 signs that you can hang up anywhere you want. And my husband has one in his office, and he's got it hung up, and he's got Post-it notes, and all the parents are writing what they're grateful for, and they're sticking it all over the walls. What do you need to release? One woman said, eating pizza too much. I was reading today.
Right.
Another one, what do you want to embrace? And she said, my baby, which was so nice.
Yeah.
So it's an interactive process, and that's called your trail kit. And the last one is a mini kit. It's a little box, and you open it up, and there's an ocean stone that I found these stones, and my neighbor writes them up, boxes them up. You open it up, the 5 questions are right there, and you hold the stone, ask the questions, and you hear your answers. So there's lots of ways to walk Grace Trail. And of course, I always will come and set up an interactive Grace Trail for large groups or small groups. But so there's just so many ways to walk Grace Trail.
I love it. I love it. We're going to have to do a Grace Trail for Fearless Happiness one of these days. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. So that leads me into the questions I'd like to ask then. So,
okay,
going through what you've been through and our
Yes.
conversation today, as you
Yep.
could see, I'm going to ask you questions by the name. My book is the name of same name as my podcast. So I'd like to start
Okay.
with Fearless.
Okay.
So what does fearless mean to you, Anne? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Right. Well, for me, it really is that whole thing I shared with you about doing one thing a day that scares me, because the thought of being fearless is different for me, because I have to hold that I'm scared with a lot of new things. So being fearless doesn't really talk to me as much as do one thing a day that scares you. And it's okay to be scared and brave at the same time. That's fearless to me, because
I love it.
that helps me to move through the emotion to actually put it into action. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. I love it.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my next question is happiness. As you can see, I put a Y in it. What does
Yes.
happiness mean to you? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
Well, I'll tell you, how does it show up in my life? I have a rule in my life that I have to go experience joy once or twice throughout the day. No matter what's going on, I'll say to myself, what did I do today that was joyful? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. I just have to go outside and walk maybe for 5 minutes. I just So happiness to me comes in all different shapes and sizes. But the first thing is, I know when I access joy and when I feel joyful, that makes me happy. So that's one thing. But the other thing for me really is I really can only feel happy when I'm planted in the present moment.
Yes.
Asking the 5 questions for me helps me to get into the present moment. Gratitude helps you. Gratitude helps you to get into the present moment. From there, I can look around and say, you know what? I'm just a speck on this earth. We're on a planet. That always cracks me up. Like we're
Right.
walking around like on a planet. You look up at night and the stars and there are satellites moving. It's like, we all think we're so important, but we're really just these little, well, I don't know what we are, but we're walking around on a planet. And if I can plant myself in the present moment and realize that I'm pretty lucky to be here on this planet, breathing oxygen and this beautiful sun we had today. And that's happiness for me. And I mean, of course, also many other ways, but that's the door into happiness for me is getting into the present moment, taking a deep breath, looking around, and I just did something on all of my social media platforms, and you can go to gracetrail.com and see me on YouTube, um, LinkedIn, Insta, and Facebook. And I did this thing called Snap Out of It. And what it is just stop. That's the S. Just stop and take a breath. Look around. That's N. Notice. Whew, look around. Notice. What can you appreciate? That's A. What can you appreciate? Just look around, take a deep breath. What brings you joy or can you appreciate? And the P is participate in that moment. Just savor it. That's how you can snap out of it, right? And
Right.
snap into a more positive mindset is stop, notice, appreciate, and participate in that moment.
I love it. I love it. I hope you are enjoying this as much as I am,
I'm
audience.
loving it.
This is awesome. This has been a great time, Anne. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your wisdom and the value you brought. So this is the point where I'm going to ask you if my audience wants to get a hold of you and learn
Yes,
more about Grace Trails, work
yes,
with you.
yes.
How do they get a hold of you?
They go to gracetrail.com. They'll find everything there. We're expanding it now, a whole business to business section, because we want to really reach out to the businesses and bring the Grace Trails into the businesses. That's coming up in the next month. There'll be a whole
Okay.
change, but they can find a questionnaire there for custom trails. They can email me from there, and they can always go to ann@gracetrail.com. But from the website, they can also, I encourage everyone to sign up for my newsletter. It's called Tales from the Trail. And also join us on social. Whatever platform you like, you'll find on my website. Please go there and follow us, share. Please connect with us. Join me on the trail.
Absolutely. I know I will, everybody. I hope you will too. It'll be fun.
We'll see you on the trail, huh?
That's right. We'll see you on the trail. Anne and I will see you on the trail.
That's right.
Man, this is, like I said, been one amazing time, and you
You.
have brightened my day, and it's
Oh,
been a
great.
joy to be here with you
Great.
today.
I'm
But you're not
thrilled.
quite off the hook just yet. I get to ask
Okay.
you my favorite question that I ask
Okay.
all my guests, and it goes
Yep.
like this. What is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them
Yep.
grow as human beings and become better people?
Okay. First of all, I don't give advice. I only ask questions. So my question would be, I ask myself all the time, what can I do today to make today really matter? That's a big question. How can I make today count? That sort of takes you from, again, your to-do list to like, wow, what, what would make a difference? in the world, in me, in my family. And it only has to be one thing, but make it matter. And that would be it. That would be it. Ask yourself that question like around noon. What do I have to do with the rest of my day that really would matter? Right? Because we just
Yeah.
are so distracted.
Right.
Just, we're not often focusing on what's most important.
Right. I love it. Thank you so much for doing me the honor of being here. And
It was an honor. Thank you. Thanks for all the work you do.
Oh, thank you. But this is like, I love it because now we get to connect, and now we're two people in this world that are trying to make it a better place. And you did a great job of making my life better today by being here. Thank you so much. And I know the audience got, like I said, a lot of value out of you being here. So you heard her, everybody. If Anne made you think, if she made you smile, if she taught you something, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast.
Oh, definitely.
And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Thank you, Max, and everyone.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.